Hey everyone, I hope you all are safe and doing well. My name is Sandeep and I welcome you back to PM Intellect. Today's video is going to be our third video in the Agile series, which is focused on Agile and Agile based methodologies. In this video, we will cover Scrum. Though Scrum is one of the most popular framework and it is a very big topic, but I'll try to touch base the key concepts, rules, the Scrum processes and key terminologies which are being used in Scrum. Alright, then let's start with the definition itself. Now, Scrum is an agile methodology which is designed to add energy, focus, clarity, and transparency to project planning and implementation. Today, Scrum is being used in small, mid-sized, and large software corporations all across the world. Now, going by the definition, Scrum framework is an agile methodology which is designed around a set of practices, rules, events, and artifacts. It also guides towards project execution. Now, if we can properly implement Scrum, we should expect certain benefits out of it. So let's go through the key benefits that we could expect. Now, if we can properly implement Scrum, we will definitely increase the speed of development. We can align individual and corporate objectives. We create a culture which is driven by performance and support shareholder value creation. We achieve stable and consistent communication of performance at all levels. Also, one of the key is to enhance individual development and quality of life. So in other words, Scrum is an extremely light framework which is tightly defined and very simple to understand. Since it has defined the rules, processes, events, and artifacts very strictly, it becomes very difficult to master. And it is difficult to master as it expects change in human behavior. And for any team to be successful with Scrum, developers would have to make significant behavioral changes. A Scrum team is expected to be self-organized and cross-functional. Now moving forward, and let's understand the three pillars of Scrum or the three pillars of empiricism. Now empiricism means working in a fact-based, experience-based and evidence-based manner. Now Scrum implements an empirical process where progress is based on observations of reality and not fictitious plans. Now, Scrum also places great emphasis on mindset and cultural shift to achieve business and organizational agility. Now, the first and foremost is transparency. So, the main aspect of the process must be defined by a common standard, and a common language that refers to the process has to be shared by all participants. A common definition of done for those performing work and accepting the work product. Now, the second one is inspection. Scrum users must frequently inspect Scrum artifacts and progress towards a sprint goal. The inspection should not be so frequent that they get in the way of the work. Now, inspections are most effective when diligently performed by skilled inspectors at the point of the work. And the last one is adaptation. So we have done the inspection, we have a transparent environment, adapting to changes or tactical changes and being okay to change the tactical directions. It is how you react on the results of the inspection. Process or the material being processed must be adjusted if an inspection determines that one or more aspects of process deviate outside acceptable limits and resulting product will be unacceptable. And it is also being done throughout the entire Scrum process, be it sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review or sprint retrospection. Now moving forward, now let's understand 5 values of Scrum. And the first and the foremost is focus. Now teams pay close attention to the results and they hold each other accountable, and that attains openness. The third one is commitment, and team members ensure that the whole team is committed. Next one is courage, and the team members engage each other in healthy conflicts. So although we have a very focused, open and committed environment and team members are courageous, they never tend to lose respect and they earn respect by building trust amongst them. Now moving forward, let's understand the terminologies that we are going to use in understanding the Scrum process. So to begin with, every product must have a vision. So the product vision in Scrum is a brief statement of desired future state that would be achieved by developing and deploying a product. Now the end result is a product, and that is why we are working. And a product is any item or service that we can sell to serve a customer's need or want. Now product could be physical or virtual. So physical products could be car, furniture, tea, cold drink, food, etc. Whereas a virtual product could be any service or any experience that we are delivering. For example, a music player or any service to use the application. Now there is another category which is getting more popular nowadays, and that is hybrid product. So it could include a physically delivered product and there could be some supporting services as well. And one of the best example that I could think of right now is an Apple Watch. So Apple Watch is a product which is a standalone product, but there are a lot of services which are being sold around the same product. For example, Apple Fit. So you can use a lot of extra services with the same product, and that becomes a hybrid product. Next one is product backlog. So a product backlog is a Scrum artifact that consists of an ordered list of the work to be done in order to create, maintain, and sustain a product. So before we understand sprint backlog, let's understand what is sprint. Sprint is a Scrum event that is time boxed to 1 month or less. So it can vary from 1 to 4 weeks, and that serves as a container for the Scrum events and activities. Now sprints are done consecutively, one after the other, without any gap. Coming back to sprint backlog is a Scrum artifact that provides an overview of the development work to realize a sprint's goal. Now, typically, a forecast of functionality and work needed to deliver that functionality, and it is managed by the developers. Next one is sprint planning. Sprint planning is a Scrum event that is time boxed to 8 hours or less to start a sprint. It serves for the Scrum team to inspect the work from the product backlog that's most valuable to be done next, and the design that work into the sprint backlog. Next one is a product increment. So it's again a Scrum artifact that defines the complete and valuable work produced by the developers during one sprint. And the sum of all these increments will be forming the end product. Now, the first and foremost, the product owner. And a product owner is a person who is responsible for maximizing the value of the product and the work of the development team, and is primarily responsible for managing the product backlog and managing priorities. Next one is our development team, and it consists of professionals who do the actual work for delivering the potentially releasable increment of done product at the end of each sprint. They are self-organizing and they are very cross-functional. Last but not the least, it's the Scrum Master, and he's a person who is ensuring that Scrum is understood and enacted. And the Scrum Master would set up meetings and monitors everything. Now, let's have a look at the individual roles. To start with, the product owner. So every product owner owns the vision and roadmap of the product and is empowered to prioritize and deprioritize any of the features or functionalities, and will also be primarily responsible for the budget or getting the cost approved in everything for the product development. Next one is collaboration. So product owner will incubate and co-locate the teams. In current scenario, I know it's not very much possible to have co-located teams, and that is where a lot of adjustment is being done, but that is initially how it was expected. And also the product owner will facilitate joint backlog grooming meetings and will join meetings to understand and support the developers and the Scrum Master anywhere we have any blockers or any clarification is required. Now, he will also be an interface to the market, to the people, to collect the feedbacks and to collect the data through exposing the product to market through surveys or various mechanisms. And it will also be releasing the increments to the users. The product owner will always be responsible for the features which should be the part of the product and the user experience, what the product will be delivering to. Last but not the least is the value, which is most important. And the product owner will control the value by defining the business model, by ensuring the revenue sources are appropriate, cost structure and channels to get the maximum value out of the product. To product owner, we have the Scrum Master. So let's understand the roles and responsibilities of a Scrum Master. The primary responsibility of the Scrum Master is to promote the Scrum principles and Scrum values, and he does it by organizing meetings and ensuring that the teams have sufficient information to carry out the work. He's also responsible for planning the releases and organizing team building activities, and he ensures that all the work is done as expected, and that is via the definition of the done or DoD. And then the Scrum Master is also responsible for enabling the team for autonomous learning. They're talking to each other, they are learning on their own, and they are self-organized on that perspective as well. He also treats as an agile trainer and consults the team on any doubt or any clarification that might be needed. He will also guard and mediate and resolve any conflicts within any teams. If there is any conflict, he will call out for the meetings. He will listen to the both scenarios and settle the things down. If there is any hindrance or any blocker, or if there is any outside interference, Scrum Master will guard the team. Another role that a Scrum Master should play is he should appreciate the hard work. He should take pride in the good work and celebrate success. acts as a support guy and the go-to person for the development team. He will monitor and track the progress using burnout charts and status reports, and then also reports back to management, provides performance feedback to the dev team, and will also contribute to the process improvements. And mind it that he might not be the line manager for most of the development teams, so he is responsible for sharing the feedback back to the management, and he will also maintain the Scrum tool. Last but not the least, he will be assisting the team on getting autonomous, transparent, and open, and will also ensure the team is flexible and they are working. Most of the time, a face-to-face communication is promoted, but this might change in current scenario where we might have to rely on video calls. Now, next one, let's go through the Scrum process as a whole, how it looks like, and we will try to cover the end-to-end activities which are being performed during the entire process. So to begin with, everything starts with a product backlog. So we have understood that product backlog contains all the features which we are expecting out of the product or the final product once it is delivered. And to maintain the product backlog and the prioritize all the items, product owner is responsible. He will be organizing sprint planning team with the development teams, and the development team will agree on how much to complete by the sprint's end. And based on this agreement, a sprint backlog is prepared and the tasks are defined. And also they are assigned to individual developers, and we know who is going to complete what. The entire development team will be responsible for delivering the items which are put into the sprint backlog. Once we have defined the sprint backlog, we will start with the sprint planning, and then we will continue with the sprint work. So ideally the sprint is again 1 to 4 weeks. Further, every 24 hours there will be a daily stand-up. Scrum Master will be organizing it, and he will be ensuring what we have done yesterday, what we have done today, and if there is any blocker, how can we mitigate that. So he will be supporting on any issues that might be coming up. Further, till the time the sprint is completed, the scope doesn't change, the goal doesn't change, team deliverables doesn't change, and the end date doesn't change. So the dev team must complete everything which was present in the sprint backlog by end of the sprint. Once the sprint is completed, sprint review is done, and further a sprint retrospective is also done. The sprint retrospection could be done by the beginning of the next sprint or could be delivered immediately as the sprint is delivered. So by end of the nth sprint or the last sprint, our product is done, and the product is done once the entire product backlog has been delivered. So let's have a look on the Scrum process and how the sprint cycle works. So the first of all, the work to be performed during the sprint is planned at the sprint planning meeting. Collaborative work of the entire Scrum team leads into a working plan which is defined in this meeting. And the further things which needs to be understood are what can be delivered in the increment resulting from the upcoming sprint, and how will the work required to deliver the increment be achieved. So these are the things that are being finalized in the sprint planning meeting. We agree upon the list of the items that will be delivered. Moving to the next step are the daily scrum and daily work. So the daily scrum is a 15-minute time-boxed event for the development team to synchronize activities and create a plan for the next 24 hours. So the team members will explain, what did I do yesterday that helped the development team meet the sprint goal? What will I do today to help the development team meet the sprint goal? And do I see any stumbling blocks that prevent me or the team from meeting the sprint goal? So these are the things which are discussed and are being addressed by the Scrum Master. Moving on the next step, which is the product increment. So the increment is the sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint, and it includes the value of increments of all the previous sprints as well. At the end of any sprint, the new increment must be done. So the product must be in a usable condition regardless of whether the product owner decides to actually release it or to hold it. So the ultimate goal of every sprint is to complete the development work as it was agreed in the sprint planning meeting. It doesn't include the release process. Further, next step is sprint review, and it is held at the end of every sprint to inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog if needed. During this meeting, the Scrum team and stakeholders collaborate about what was done in the sprint, and it is an informal meeting and not a status meeting. Next one is sprint retrospection, and it is an opportunity for the Scrum team to inspect and create a plan for improvement to be carried out during the next sprint. Now the sprint retro occurs after the sprint review and prior to the next sprint planning. And the sole purpose of this meeting is to inspect how the last sprint went with regard to people, relationships, processes, and tools. Moving further, And as we know, the product backlog is an ordered list of everything that might be necessary in the product. It is a single source of requirement of any changes to be made to the product. Now, product backlog is dynamic and it is never complete. It constantly changes to identify what the product needs to be appropriate, competitive, and useful. Talking about this backlog, let's understand different type of backlogs. First and foremost is product backlog, and which is a list of all preferred product features. Each user story has story points assigned to it, and items can be added by anyone at any time, allowed to mature or change as more is learned about product and customers. Second one is the release backlog, which is a subset of product backlog, and it may involve one or more sprints dependent on the release date. It includes all product backlog items required for a particular release. Last one is the sprint backlog, and sprint backlog has a to-do list for that particular sprint. Sprint tasks are decomposed from user stories and team estimates task in days or hours. Sprint backlog is created by Scrum team and updates the sprint backlog at least daily. At the end, let's review the entire process once again, and this time from a product lifecycle perspective. So first we start with the preparation, and it is done to include the business case and funding, to have the contractual agreements ready, the vision to be defined and shared from the organization to the product owner and to the team, the preparation of initial product backlog, initial release plan, a confirmation from the stakeholders, and assembling the team. Then we continue and start with the Scrum process, which is again starts from the sprint planning meeting with the daily Scrum meetings and the daily development work, the product increment, sprint review, sprint retrospection, and again updating the product backlog. We have a number of sprints which are being completed, and based on each sprint we have a release, and finally a product is delivered with the constant efforts from product owners, Scrum master, team members, stakeholders, and users. Now that's all for today's video. If you have a question, drop a comment, and if you have any feedback to share, you can drop a mail on pmintellects@gmail.com. Thank you and have a nice day.